Hello and welcome to Business Incorporated. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Coming up on the show today, World Bank financing for COVID-19 vaccine rollout in developing countries reaches $2 billion. South Africa's inflation rises to 3.2% in March. And Kenya seeks debt experts ahead of Eurobond issuance. Well, let's get the show started with intro market numbers, which were in the negative territory in Africa. Nigeria's main index reversed the bullish run and was down marginally by 0.04%, while the JSE in South Africa declined by 0.23%. In Egypt, the EGX 30 lost 0.60%, while Kenya ended Wednesday's session positive. More positive sentiments in the Middle East, where all the markets we track were in the green. In the UAE, Dubai's index jumped by almost 1%, while Abu Dhabi's index advanced 0.67%. Elsewhere in the region, Saudi Arabia's index added 0.22%, while the Qatari index was marginally higher by 0.05%. European stocks climbed on today following a global rebound in markets after days of negative sentiments. Well, let's talk to Atosh for more development. Hello, Atosh. Welcome to the program. Well, the EU is planning
thanks for having me.
You're welcome. The EU is planning to launch a legal action against Astrazeneca for failing to deliver pledged vaccine doses to the Bloc. Fill us in on this.
Well, absolutely, yes. So the reports say that the European Commission is clearly frustrated with Astrazeneca, and it is contemplating to drag the company to a court. And now it is actually seeking support from member states, calling on member states to support its move. But for now, there's no decision on it made, as there is no decision as of now. But we can see why the Commission is so frustrated with AstraZeneca, because AstraZeneca hasn't really been meeting its contractual obligations. It has cited supply chain issues, but clearly the Commission is not convinced. The company is projected to supply some 70 million doses at the end of second quarter, and that's well below the 300 million doses that it had actually promised in the contract. So there is this sense of frustration that is there, and you can actually see it in the decisions that the European Commission is making. So now it's not going to exercise its right to buy 100 million more of these AstraZeneca doses that it had initially said in the contract. So that's not going to happen. In fact, there are reports that the European Commission may not actually look to renew its contract with the company altogether going forward. And it is actually putting all its faith in Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. It is happy with the companies. They've been sticking to their timelines, and that's the reason why, a big reason why the vaccination drive in the bloc has actually picked up.
All right, so on Friday, German Chancellor Angela Merkel will be appearing before a parliamentary panel inquiring into the Wirecard financial scandal. What do we expect from this inquiry?
Well, we can expect some really tough questions. The lawmakers would be interested in knowing as to why Chancellor Angela Merkel did lobby for Wirecard during her trip to China in 2019. This despite the fact that there were these negative reports about the company's wrongdoings in the media and elsewhere in public domain. Then why did she actually do and lobby for the company? So that is going to be the main big question. The Chancellery has said that the company wasn't informed of all the relevant facts by the finance ministry. So it has sort of deflected the blame on the finance ministry. And finance minister of Germany, Olaf Scholz, he was quizzed by this panel today, and he too rejected any blame for the scandal. And he said that perhaps the blame lies with the auditor, the E&Y, and the company's managers. But he did admit that perhaps there were some shortcomings on the financial regulator's side, that it wasn't well equipped to deal with scandals of this scale, and that the ministry was looking at restructuring this regulator.
Well, I guess we just have to wait for tomorrow and see how that turns out after the inquiry. Well, it's ECB's rate decision day. No surprises there, right?
No, absolutely not. It's pretty much the same. The accommodative monetary policy continues. The pace of bond buying, which had increased in the past few weeks to actually keep the borrowing cost down, it's going to continue for the rest of this quarter. So there is clearly no surprises. And as we talk, the press conference is going on, and that's where the analysts would be looking at what Christine Lagarde has to say about the future and how optimistic is she about a rebound, and how soon is the bank looking at easing the accommodative policy or tightening it rather. So all these are the important things that the markets analysts would be looking at. But for now, the accommodative policy stays. There's still a lot of uncertainty around the recovery, and especially with extended lockdowns across the bloc. So for now, all the focus would be on that press conference that is taking place as we speak.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashutosh. I'm sure you want to go there and get more information. Thanks a lot for filling us in on the happenings there. Well, we move over now to London, where Juliana Olainka is standing by to bring us up to speed with developing stories. Juliana, hello. Good afternoon. Once again, we meet.
Good afternoon, Idi. Keeping busy as always.
Yeah, I see that. Well, reports of climate activists breaking windows at the HSBC headquarters is making headlines right now. What are you hearing about it?
Well, Extinction Rebellion, the pretty disruptive environmental organisation, has striked again. They did this last month. This time it was, last time it was outside Barclays. This time it's outside HSBC. And it all coincides with World Earth Day, which is taking place at the moment. I've just been listening to the opening speech by US President Joe Biden, followed by Xi Jinping, as the world's biggest polluters attempt to try and tackle the climate crisis. Some environmental organisations don't believe governments are doing enough, so they're stepping in, and they're doing so by causing disruption. And what they've done this morning is by breaking windows of the HSBC headquarters in the capital. They put on one of the windows, better broken windows than broken promises. Of course, the police didn't agree with that statement, which is why 9 women have been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage. But it is part of a huge discussion, especially with HSBC, Europe's biggest bank. They are one of the world's biggest contributors to fossil fuels. And it isn't just environmentalists that are speaking out about how banks do need to start decarbonising. A lot of investors are not happy as well. According to some recent data by the Rainforest Action, HSBC have funded up to $110 billion into projects that are pretty dirty, and a lot of people are not happy with that. So that's why those women were smashing windows this morning. They have been arrested, and World Earth Day continues.
Yeah, well, in the morning we spoke about the Credit Suisse loss. How are the markets reacting to this intraday?
Interesting, not much reaction on the markets, but of course it's still a big topic of discussion within the square mile. Credit Suisse, a huge lender, losing over 757 billion Swiss francs to the Archegos capital, pretty controversial collapse last month. It's not just that. There's a series of crises, actually, that the Swiss lender has found itself in. We've spoken a lot, Inni, about Greensill Capital, and that being a huge scandal that's embroiling Westminster at the moment. Credit Suisse are also caught up in that scandal, and they've had to stop tens of billions of pounds worth of funding because they've been caught up in that. So it's not a great day for them. They've lost 30% of their market capital since these scandals have come to wear last month. They have tried their best to try and rally support from investors, and they managed to raise about 1.9 billion Swiss francs to try and mitigate against these losses. But it hasn't reached the shores of Britain. British investors are pretty happy at the moment because we did have some data from the Confederation of British Industry. They're a lobby group that look after the affairs of tens of thousands of businesses. And the manufacturing survey that they've conducted showed an optimism improvement for Q1 that they haven't seen since the 70s. So things do seem to be going according to plan when it comes to British economic output improving as we come out of this lockdown. So having a look at the numbers, the FTSE All-Share is up by 0.25%. The FTSE 100 is up by 0.16%, and the FTSE 250 is up by 0.57%. In the currencies market, the British pound is down against the US dollar by 0.14%, down against the euro by 0.23%, and down against the Japanese yen and intraday by 0.15%, Tinny.
Well, just before we let you go, the Jaguar Land Rover is temporarily suspending production in its UK factories. What's the issue here?
Well, it's a major issue, actually. I'm surprised it's not really dominating business headlines as it should be. But one of the main problems that we have is that the world is suffering from a significant shortage of semiconductors. These are the chips that go into all sorts of things, televisions, laptops, mobile phones. They have seen a surge of interest during the global lockdowns because, of course, most of us have been at home and have been using lots of this technology. And so there has been knock-on effects, which is why Jaguar Land Rover have temporarily had to halt production at 2 sites in Britain because they just don't have any of these chips. But this does go back to Donald Trump's administration and that huge trade spat that he was having with Beijing. They put a block on how much of these chips could be sent to China. That's had knock-on effect because a lot of companies were stockpiling, so some just couldn't get their hands on it. Of course, as well, there has been supply issues across the world due to the pandemic and Bitcoin. A lot of people have been talking about Bitcoin and the amount of computer storage that they are using when they're mining these coins, which is having a knock-on effect. So not only Jaguar Land Rover have been affected, Apple have also been affected. I believe Samsung as well, one of their Galaxy Notes that they were going to produce, they put them on hold because of this major issue. I do have a statement here from Jaguar Land Rover. They said, like other automotive manufacturers, we're currently experiencing some COVID-19 supply chain disruption, including the global availability of semiconductors. As a result, we've adjusted production schedules for certain vehicles, which means that our Castle Bromwich and Hellwood manufacturing plants will be operating for a limited period from Monday, the 26th of April. They say they're working closely with affected suppliers to try and resolve it. But yes, this is a major issue, something I think we'll be talking about a lot more in the near future.
Yes, I see that. Thank you so much, Juliana. We'll try and enjoy the rest of your day. I know you have some other programs to produce for the day. All right, so we move over now to Asia, where stocks in Asia Pacific rose, with Japanese shares leading gains among the region's major markets. The Nikkei 225 in Japan jumped 2.38% to close at 29,188.17, recovering partially from 2 days of losses earlier in the week, while the Topix index gained 1.82% to finish the trading day at 1,922.50. South Korea's Kospi closed at 0.18% higher at 3,177.52, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng index rose about 0.5% as of its final hour of trading. Stocks in mainland China closed mixed, while the Shanghai Composite slipped 0.23% to 3,465.11, while the Shenzhen Component rose 0.412% to 14,209.44. Shares in Australia notched higher as S&P ASX 200 gained 0.83% to close at 7,055.40. MCSI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific stocks outside Japan gained 0.38%. We'll take a break now and bring you more stories afterwards. Welcome back. Well, we'll continue now at the commodities market update. And guess what? We are talking about mangoes. Over the last 5 years, mango production has been on the rise in Africa. In West Africa, annual production of mangoes is about 1.5 million tons, representing 4% of global mango production. At the same time, post-harvest losses for the West African region are estimated at massive 50 to 80%. And these losses are largely due to or storage. But we want to talk about that now with Mayowa Ige, a research analyst at financial derivatives company. Hello, Mayowa. Good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, although West Africa accounts for 4% of global mango production, post-harvest losses is still a major challenge. How can countries in this region improve the mango value chain in order to curb these post-harvest losses and boost income for the farmers and, of course, for the government?
So the mango fruit is a very perishable fruit. It has a short shelf life. At room temperature, it only lasts about 4 to 8 days. And then, like you mentioned, what the post-harvest losses are due to largely to poor storage facilities, but there are also other factors involved in it. Apart from storage facilities, you have the poor handling, farming techniques and handling of mangoes by the farmers, such that some farmers shake mango trees to harvest crops, which is bad because the mango fruit has a very delicate flesh, and so shaking it leads to damaged fruit. You also have them not using right farming techniques like cover crop protection in order to guard against diseases and pests, and all of these also have had an impact on post-harvest losses because they are producing fruits of poor quality. And then there's also the part of logistics, transporting the mango fruits from the rural areas to the urban areas. Because we have bad roads, that process of transporting the goods leads to about 10% of damages to the produce that have been harvested. In order to curb these post-harvest losses, governments in this region need to look at these factors that have been contributing to huge post-harvest losses. And one, by educating the farmers on best agricultural practices in order to reduce the post-harvest losses, the damage level or number of damaged mango fruits that they have. And also the governments also need to improve upon their road infrastructure. But I think that one pressing thing that governments in these regions need to look into is into the processing of mango fruits, processing it into products such as juice, mango juice. You have the dried fruit. You already have, like in Nigeria, for instance, we have companies such as Real Fruit. I think they produce real fruit, a product called, they have dried mangoes. They need to look at giving incentives to companies like this in order for them to also boost their own, to also get more involved in the processing angle of the government also need, and private sector also need to invest more in processing centers in major mango producing areas.
All right, well, India is the world's largest producer of mangoes, produces an annual volume of 18 million tons, which is 20 times more than Nigeria's total production of about 900,000 tons. At this time that there's a surge of COVID-19 in India, how is it affecting the production and supply, and what lessons can Nigeria learn from the production and handling process of mango in India?
Okay, so India, the last year when the pandemic happened, it had a negative impact on the supply of mangoes to the local markets and export markets in India. And also this year, we're beginning to see that it's going to have another impact it might have another impact with the surge of cases like you have mentioned. Already, for the second year in a row, India will not be exporting mangoes to the US. And US is like one of its major export market for mangoes, and that may actually have a negative impact again on its export of mangoes, because this is second year in a row rather, that they're having this issue, and so it might have a negative impact on them. But then it's expected that even the consumption of mangoes in the US would increase, and with the rollout of vaccines in the US and hopefully India, we expect that there will be an improvement in and a decline in cases. Hopefully, they won't have to experience this for a third year in a row. For Nigeria, I think that we have so many challenges affecting our agricultural space. And then countries like India, even though they have a larger land area for cultivating mangoes, they have been able to invest in technology, better farm practices that have helped boost their own mango production over the years. So for Nigeria, we need to address the major agricultural challenges that are affecting our own output, such as lack of capital, low mechanization, poor handling, of poor farming techniques. We need to address all of this and see how India is doing it, the way they have been able to include technology to improve their own production, and also put that into our own production. That I believe that will help us, that will help boost our own local production.
Well, unlike other agricultural commodities that have wide supply-demand gap, the domestic demand for mangoes is significantly lower than supply. How can we explain this?
So the mango fruit is a highly seasonal fruit, and in its peak season, the supply is usually higher than demand, and we see low prices for it. But then we know that mango is nutritious and everything, but there's a lot of people take it in moderation because it has its side effects. It can lead to overeating, it can lead to diarrhea, indigestion, and it's actually harmful for diabetic patients. And so maybe this knowledge has actually limited the demand for mango so far. Demand for mango, so a lot of people do not demand for mango. That's why the demand is not as high as the supply that we have. So I think this may be a factor contributing to that.
Mayowa, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on Business Incorporated, and enjoy the rest of your day. Well, we move over now to South Africa, where data from Statistics South Africa shows that the country's annual consumer price inflation rose to 3.2% in March, up from 2.9% in February. The report attributes the change to increase in prices of food and non-alcoholic beverages, as annual inflation for food and non-alcoholic beverages edged up to 5.7% in March, from 5.2% in February. And now to Kenya, where Kenya National Treasury is seeking experts to help the country restructure its external commercial loans to reduce the cost and improve its debt sustainability measure. According to the Treasury, the experts will be tasked with drawing up the best options for Kenya to restructure its liabilities sustainably, which might include taking up new, cheaper loans to retire older, more expensive debt. The move comes at a time when the country has started to feel the heat of servicing the huge borrowing from recent years, partly due to the COVID-19 pandemic that has hit the balance of payments. And now to World Bank. The World Bank had announced that it has reached $2 billion in improved financing for the purchase and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines for 17 developing countries. This financing is part of the $12 billion set aside for 24 months for developing countries to acquire and deploy vaccines and strengthen their vaccination systems. For poorer countries, financing is on grant or highly concessional terms. The $2 billion funding is supporting COVID-19 vaccination in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Cabo Verde, and other countries. Well, that's it for Business Incorporated for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ini John Mekwa.